know, I had one of those costumes on with a big bare butt so that when people walk by, they can just kind of, it's already amusing enough, apparently, that we're here listening to someone breathe. Like, oh my God. Oh. Thanks, Jay. Thank you so much, Laura. This is very cool, and it's so great to have a prose book. This is not poetry. And I'm sorry to tell you, there is no fantastical element in my story. It is, I realized, I had an epiphany when I was trying to write nonfiction. It is my job to tell some of you youngins what it was actually like to come of age in the 70s. And as embarrassing it is to me and some of my friends, sorry honey, these stories must be told. They're real. I was working on a bunch of pieces about a dinner theater I worked in college, and the material just keeps coming from that time. And I had a poem that just wasn't working as a poem. So when this wonderful event came about and I had the chance to maybe take this poem and make it into an essay, I took it. Plus, I was working with my creative writing class, and we were trying to write a piece that had a song as sort of the main thing. There was a song that was somehow involved in the piece. And so I realized, oh, that goes with the poem that's not working, and that might be enough. So anyway, here we go. And the name of the piece and the name of the song is Sweet Melissa. Allman Brothers. The dinner theater where I worked during some formative college years was a rich, tawdry, shiny place. It fascinated me. As a fledgling adult with pretensions of sophistication, I loved the atmosphere of second-rate glamour, minor league intrigue among the theater and food service staff, and the prevailing air of potential adventure. The stars were mostly burnt-out TV series veterans or faded Hollywood types, and the plays were silly romantic comedies. The best drama was always behind the scenes, of course. The director cheating on his wife with the current ingenue from New York. The Greek chef loudly firing a drunken dishwasher. The complicated love lives of the waiters, who wore tuxedos so cheap that if a Manhattan or a Mai Tai was spilled on the jacket, the liquid would bead and bounce like rain off a duck's back. My job shifted from show to show. Sometimes I was the smiling hostess up front, sometimes the nervous assistant stage manager or dresser backstage. The management found me useful and flexible, and I reveled in moving from subworld to subworld along the worn, carpeted passageways between the front of the house and backstage. People confided in me. I knew everybody's business, from the busboy's pot habits to the general manager's array of shady business dealings, which sometimes resulted in his arriving to work with bloody knuckles. I studied Shakespeare and Donne by day, life in the slightly seedy world of dinner theater by night. I met James and Will the night they started waiting tables at Once Upon Stage. I was navigating the fake Southern Veranda lobby bar wearing insanely high wedge heels and one of my high school prom dresses I used as a hostess uniform. A bright blue floor-length halter dress, with white polka dots made entirely of carefree polyester. Will was leaning on the bar looking pretty good in his equally synthetic tux, watching me with undeniable interest, which was weird because I'd gotten the distinct impression that since he and his pal James, a tall, owlish-looking guy with round-rimmed glasses, were really a couple. It was 1972, the second wave of the sexual revolution. Straight, gay, bi, these terms were bantered around constantly and very much on my mind since two of my best friends were in the process of coming out. Plus, sexual opportunities seemed to be everywhere in those days. That week, I had received a MASH note in class from an androgynous young woman known only as Barbarella, who had spotted me with friends at a local gay bar the weekend before. Nobody's sexuality seemed quite settled in this world, and experimentation seemed like an open invitation from the universe. Late-night drunken conversations always circled back to who was doing what with whom, and maps of yearning, fulfillment, and delicious confession were drawn like constellations in our youthful skies. As I smiled at Will from the hostess stand, James appeared behind me, leaned in close, and whispered, "There's nothing like a dark, skinny guy in a tuxedo, is there?" I laughed nervously, and I said, "I guess not." James' tone was friendly and almost conspiratorial, and Will preened happily under our double gaze. Over the next couple of weeks, I learned that Will and James were new in town, were roommates in a new place they were fixing up, and treated their jobs at the dinner theater like a hilarious joke. They were flirty and wickedly funny, and often I found myself at the country music bar next door with them after the theater closed, laughing over a Tom Collins or a Stinger on the Rocks. We played the new Allman Brothers song Sweet Melissa over and over again on the jukebox during band breaks. When I told them my parents had almost named me Melissa instead of Susan, they started calling me Melissa all the time at work and sang the chorus of the song to me whenever they passed me at the theater bar or in the service passageways. They began to insist I come over for dinner one night after work, a very, very late dinner, to see their house and listen to their new state-of-the-art stereo system. I called my coming out friends to see what they thought. Rick said, "They sound like a lovely couple. I should go, and while I'm at it, see if they have a friend he might like." Nikki said, "What was I afraid of? I should go, and by the way, see if they have any good pop." Sorry, but Nikki's sitting The next Saturday night, I followed them home around midnight to a secluded little house on a small lake with palmettos, oak trees, and moss forming a tropically inviting entrance. Wine glasses in hand, we toured the house. I was stunned. My friends and I lived, if we were lucky not to live in a dorm or with parents, in rented cracker boxes or roach-infested apartments with walls like paper. These two lived like kings, with swanky, well-made furniture, gorgeous oriental rugs, antique mirrors, and real paintings, not the rock band posters my friends and I stuck up on walls with tape, or cheap reprints of Escher or Beardsley for the Morton feet. They pulled out the new Allman Brothers album, Eat a Peach, and we listened to Sweet Melissa in glorious quadraphonic sound and danced, all three of us together. When we finally sat down to filet mignon served on exquisite china, they told me the story of how they found each other. Will was in federal prison, Rayford, in North Florida to be exact, and lovelorn James became his pen pal. Upon Will's release, they started their lives together as partners and found this little house and these silly jobs, and now they had found me. Me? My toes curled under the table as I tried to remain calm. As a child raised by a lawyer father and a junior league bridge playing mother, the closest I'd come to someone who had done time was watching Perry Mason on TV. Furthermore, it was clear that they were a couple, so what did they mean about finding me? I began to wonder what sharing a bed with two men who were obviously into each other would be like. I even began to plan how I would tell about it when the time came. To an audience of enraptured friends, none of whom who had done what I had. I could just picture the respect and envy in Nikki and Rick's eyes. Straight little Susie, who coughed and passed out every time I tried to smoke pot, who liked boys and couldn't help it, who was considered so wholesome that just my presence reminded my friends to brush their teeth. I would be the first to earn the threesome with two gay guys badge. But could I go through with it? James took my chin in hand and turned it toward the grand piano in the corner. His tone turned a bit serious. Melissa. As he paused dramatically, I realized I was getting used to that name. Look around. Everything in this place, everything, is stolen. Every stick of furniture, every book, every goblet. We give ourselves the best, and you can have it too. We want you to join our little family hobby. I came right out of my dream of heroic sexual boundary busting and stared at them in what must have looked like chalk-faced shock. Will took over. Honey, with your innocent face, we could pull off some major heists together. We have some big plans. We want more than anything to bring you in. We'll teach you. We know what we're doing. They had pulled their chairs close to either side of me. I felt a calming hand on each knee. Heist? Was he really using this language? Was I dreaming in film noir? I was sweating now, and my heart pounded in my ears. I somehow got to my feet, a big phony smile plastered on my face. Gee, guys, that all sounds really interesting, really great. But I'm just afraid you have got the wrong girl. Oh no, you'd be perfect, James crooned soothingly, and he poured more wine into my glass. Sit down and let's talk about it. In fact, why not stay over? I stood there in a frozen daze as he patted the cushion next to him on the very expensive, very stolen, cream-colored Danish modernism. I had been around theater enough to learn a few acting moves. I took an exaggerated gander at my watch as I walked unsteadily toward the door, tried to sound nonchalant, yet panicked. Oh, Jesus, look at the time. I have a class tomorrow at 10. It's Sunday, doll, said Will. He moved between me and the door and opened his arms wide. Think about it, he said. Then he whispered, in the meantime, our little secret, right? Then he hugged me so hard it took my breath away as James stared dimly from the table. See you at work, I squeaked. Thanks, this was really great, really fun. Things were a bit awkward at the theater after that. I smiled gamely and tried my best to be natural, but every time Will or James came near me with a slightly questioning look on their faces, I shut down like an iron gate. I saw the smirks and whispered speculations of other staff as they watched us maneuver around each other. We were once such a flirty threesome, a sparkly, intense triumvirate, now gone somehow weird and cold. With age, I would learn that work friendships and certain kinds of jobs can be as intense and fleeting as summer storms. But then I was shaken by this strange confluence of infatuation, flattery, and enormous misunderstanding. At the next show changeover, I got the backstage task of dressing the new star, Sal Mineo, during costume changes, and was released from the lobby and the prom dress and the thieves. In a few weeks, Will and James were gone. I never found out why Will went to prison in the first place, or why they left the dinner theater. It was a few years before I even drove by the little house on the lake they had lived in, just to see if it was real. And I kept quiet for a good long while. Oh.